Hello there. Welcome back to Teach Me in 10. With new PFAS regulations on the rise, it can be so tricky to understand how AI can help product development and R&D teams proactively assess and respond to the risks in their product portfolios. But it's something that's becoming increasingly important. So that's why I'm excited to say that in this episode, we'll be speaking with Ethan Mirsky, the Chief Product and Strategy Officer at Noble AI. Ethan brings a wealth of knowledge and insight into how AI can drive innovation and manage risk in today's complex regulatory landscapes. So, without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Ethan and explore how Noble AI is tackling these challenges. Hi, Ethan. Thanks so much for joining us here today. And as we only have 10 minutes, I best get things started. So, my first question really kind of has to be, what is PFAS and why is there so much regulatory buzz recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, basically materials made of long chains of carbon linked with fluorine atoms. They've been used around the world since basically the 1950s in a wide variety of roles, things like non-stick coatings on your cookware, or almost anything, or in your clothing, water repellents, fire retardants, cleaning products, food packaging, just all over the place. And they're also known as forever chemicals because they don't occur naturally or they don't occur naturally and they don't break down in the environment. So they enter water and they enter the food chain and end up everywhere where they can potentially contribute to a range of health problems. And so recently, a lot of regulatory agencies around the world, including the US EPA, several US states, the European Chemicals Agency, and many other countries around the world recently introduced new regulations intended to reduce the amount of PFAS and related materials being used and released into the environment.
Got you. So, what are the regulations that are changing and what are those driving forces?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I think the driving forces really is this recognition of the health impacts and the fact that these chemicals don't break down in the environment. And so there's really been a lot of push recently to address this. And there's many different regulations being put in place, and they're ranging from wastewater control limits to limit the amount of PFAS getting into the environment, restrictions on PFAS usage in products, and basically everything in between. What's really interesting nowadays or recently, is that particularly the EU approach is to ban entire classes of chemicals. So basically, instead of going one by one and listing every single possible PFAS, of which there are tens of thousands,
Hmm.
they're going after entire classes, which means that even if a particular PFAS chemical is not on a specific list, you have to care about it. And even if the regulations didn't cover it, I mean, consumers are waking up to this risk and asking questions like, "Hey, is there PFAS in my food packaging?" That's an important question to know. So
Absolutely.
as a in the industry that makes these things, you have to start caring.
Absolutely, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So, what kind of problems does this create for businesses, and which industries do you think will be under the most pressure to address them?
Mm. Yeah, well, it's a big range. I mean, as I said, these things are used in so many different areas. Um, the pressure, of course, is that both regulatory and consumer pressure to remove these chemicals, to get them out of the environment, get them out of the materials that we're interacting with on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I mean, think anyone who makes a consumer product, whether like shampoo or conditioner, cookware, the people who make the fire retardants in your house, on your clothing, and in your furniture. I mean, all of that. It's gonna hit everybody.
Hmm.
Um, and the challenge is that, again, because these things are everywhere and have been used for so long, it's often hard to identify like which products have a problem,
Hmm.
which specific ingredients are banned, and even if, as we just said, it might be, or I just said, it might be that you want to be a little proactive. You want to get rid of ingredients that are harmful even before they show up on the regulatory list, because those are constantly changing. You have to do a careful evaluation of every single ingredient and every single product that you're doing, looking for toxicity, biodegradability, similarity to known hazards. And this takes a lot of time and effort, and it often has to be repeated every time some new information comes to light about some new chemical that's of an issue. And then once you've identified the problem, the challenge is, of course, to replace it. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't simply go swap one new thing for another because you still have a product that has to do something. It has
Yeah.
to have the same properties, it has to have the same performance, and it has to have the same cost structure. I mean, people aren't going to pay a lot more just because you've swapped things around. And so it's a big issue.
Massively. So, from that, I'm really interested to know what is science-based AI and how are your customers able to leverage it to turn regulatory headwinds into that kind of innovation tailwind?
Great. Thank you for thank you for asking that. That is what we do. So science-based AI is really a method for quickly building AI models that understand scientific principles, business constraints, and relevant data, and can make the predictions and insights around these kinds of specific chemical material products. And they're especially effective for these kinds of chemical formulations. And so um, you can use these models to understand the hazards, to quickly screen through the thousands of ingredients you use, look for all of those properties, whether it's toxicity or carcinogenicity or whether it's a PFAS or whether it's related to a PFAS. Looking through all of that, the models can very quickly understand these things and give you that list of here's the high risk, here's the medium risk, here's the low risk. And once you've identified where the problem is, the models are really good at figuring out the properties of those materials because they understand the science involved. They can say things like, "Oh, this material, this product needs to have this particular viscosity. So if you're going to swap, you're going to change out this ingredient. Here's all the changes you have to make. Here's a recommended formulation that will still achieve your goal." And you can, I mean, it's not replacing any, it's not replacing chemists, it's not replacing the lab work you're going to have to do, but it's really accelerating that because you can narrow in and get started on the problem where the solution is rather than a big search. So it really reduces the time and cost to find these alternatives. And really, I like to think of it as lowering the barrier, the anxiety level you have as a company to rather than sort of panicking about these regulations and this issue, you can now get ahead of it and really have that confidence to go out in the market and say, we've addressed this issue.
Absolutely. It's pretty exciting stuff, really. And that again makes a lot of sense. So I think my next question in this sort of set has to be I'm really interested to know what the consequences are of waiting to address remediation and reformation challenges.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, the longer you wait, the worse the problem can get. Because I mean, we've seen this over and over again. The companies that try and sort of bury the bad news, it ends up coming back and biting them even harder afterwards. So, and in the past, I mean, that's been sort of a business decision because the cost of fixing the problem is very high, and so they're kind of sitting there weighing like, okay, what's the cost of doing nothing versus the cost of doing something? The opportunity here with tools like AI is to be able to get ahead of that and say, well, the cost of fixing it is low, so let's not go through deal with the cost of waiting and having to go to consumers and say, sorry, we've been poisoning you. We don't want to do that.
It's not great.
So
Wonderful. And then finally, because we're almost out of time actually, what should product
okay.
development and R&D leaders do if they're worried about the risk regulation could have on their product portfolio, sorry, and they want to kind of
Mhm.
proactively take that action?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first step is I mean, obviously you want to understand the scope of your problem and do that search for what ingredients are at risk. Prioritize and identify like what resources do you have to address the problem and what do you need to do? Prioritize. And then what help do you need? And again, we would love to help anyone, but I'm sure there's other ways to go about this. But looking for the kinds of advanced tools to really help accelerate this and fix the problem. I mean, I'd rather the problem get fixed one way or another. I mean, we would love to engage with us or engage with other industry groups and technology support to create that plan and address the concerns as quickly and efficiently as possible, and just get ahead of this problem, get ahead of the competition.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Ethan. It's been brilliant speaking with you. And I'm certain that our audience will have enjoyed this Teach Me in 10 as much as I have.
Yeah,
So thank you ever so much.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, and I'm really happy to let you know that this was brought to you by Noble AI. Noble AI enables chemical materials and energy companies to dramatically accelerate the development of better performing, more sustainable products, whilst also helping manage regulatory compliance and risk. Noble AI combines its highly data efficient, science based AI technology with the powerful cloud based Noble visualization and insights platform to give cross functional teams the ability to solve complex problems in software in minutes before running time consuming and expensive lab experiments. Noble AI is delivering real value in commercial use cases for leading companies worldwide, providing customized yet cost effective solutions with unmatched speed and data protection. But thanks again for tuning into this episode, and I hope we'll see you again very soon.